Fans watching from home couldn't get enough. Twitter exploded with reactions, memes, and commentary celebrating what they thought as Kody finally facing karma. One viral tweet read, "This is the roast we've all been waiting for since season 15 of Sister Wives." Others called the episode the most satisfying hour of television in years. The sentiment was clear. After years of watching Kody dominate conversations, dismiss emotions, and defend questionable decisions, seeing him get verbally dismantled by his peers felt like poetic justice. But the ridicule didn't stop when the cameras turned off. Reports later surfaced that even after filming ended, Kody struggled to reconnect with the group. Many contestants kept their distance, saying his energy was too heavy and too self-centered. One source revealed that he tried to win people over by opening up about his divorces, but the effort backfired. It felt like he wanted sympathy, not understanding, they said. Everyone else was dealing with real pain, and he was still trying to control the narrative. For longtime Sister Wives fans, Kody's experience on Special Forces was symbolic. It wasn't just a man being humbled, it was a public unmasking. The traits that once made him the central figure of a reality TV empire were the same ones that made him unbearable in a setting where equality and humility mattered most. His constant need to explain himself, his inability to listen, and his obsession with being seen as a leader all collided in a setting that rewarded vulnerability, not dominance. As the show continued, Kody's storyline became less about physical endurance and more about psychological unraveling. Each challenge seemed to chip away at his confidence. When faced with a terrifying water submersion test, he hesitated longer than anyone else, muttering about control and faith. When the instructors barked at him to jump, he froze, overthinking every second. It was a moment that summed up his greatest flaw, his inability to let go. Eventually, when he did jump, his reaction was less triumph than relief. Even then, he tried to turn it into a speech about overcoming fear, but no one was listening anymore. By the final stretch, Kody was a shadow of the man who had strutted into camp days before. His once bright energy dulled into quiet frustration. His teammates had bonded through mutual struggle, but he remained an outsider. During one reflective scene, the camera caught him sitting alone, staring into the distance. The voiceover captured his thoughts about leadership, family, and regret. But the emotion that stood out wasn't reflection, it was resentment. He still couldn't understand why people didn't respect him. When the finale aired, fans knew exactly why. The show had become a mirror of Kody's life. The same patterns, the same mistakes, only without the comfort of people too afraid to challenge him. His downfall wasn't staged, it was organic. Special Forces had stripped him of every excuse and exposed what many had suspected for years. Kody Brown doesn't know how to be part of a team unless he's in charge of it. The aftermath was just as brutal. Cast interviews and behind-the-scenes footage revealed even more cutting remarks. One contestant admitted that they couldn't believe how delusional he was, and another said that being around him was like living in an episode of Sister Wives without the wives. Social media lit up again, with fans joking that Kody had finally found a group of people who wouldn't tolerate his spiritual authority. Even Special Forces instructors commented indirectly, praising contestants who showed humility, a subtle but pointed exclusion that fans noticed instantly. Kody, for his part, tried to spin the experience positively. In interviews after the season aired, he claimed the show taught him a lot about himself and that he learned humility through hardship. But even his post-show remarks carried that familiar defensiveness. He spoke about being misunderstood, about editing choices, and about how he felt singled out by the other contestants. His insistence on controlling the narrative only confirmed what viewers already knew. Kody hadn't learned much at all. Yet for all the mockery, the Special Forces roast might go down as one of the most important moments in Kody Brown's reality TV journey. It forced him, and the world, to confront the version of himself that others see. The man who once demanded loyalty and obedience finally faced an audience that owed him nothing and wasn't afraid to laugh in his face. The fact that he survived the experience, even as his ego took a beating, shows that maybe, deep down, he has a sliver of resilience left. Still, no amount of spin can change the truth. Special Forces turned into a stage for Kody's reckoning. It wasn't the redemption arc he had hoped for. It was the roast fans never knew they needed. For years, viewers had watched him deflect blame, criticize his wives, and cling to a sense of superiority. This time, there was no Robyn to defend him, no TLC edit to soften his words. There was just Kody, stripped of power, surrounded by equals who saw right through him. And that's what made it beautiful. The man who spent a decade convincing everyone he was in control finally lost it, not through scandal or betrayal, but through laughter. The laughter of his peers, his audience, and perhaps even his former wives watching from afar. Because in that moment, as the cast of Special Forces roasted him with brutal honesty, Kody Brown experienced something he spent years avoiding: the truth. And maybe that's the most powerful thing about this entire saga. For the first time, the world didn't see Kody Brown, the patriarch. They saw Kody Brown, the man, vulnerable, flawed, and utterly exposed. The roar of laughter that echoed across reality TV wasn't just mockery, it was liberation, both for the castmates who endured his arrogance and the viewers who've watched his rise and fall. In the end, Special Forces didn't just test his strength, it dismantled his identity. The experience will forever stand as the reality show moment that humbled a man who thought he could never be humbled. And while Kody may one day return to TV, perhaps even to tell his side of the story, one truth will remain unshakable. On that icy, brutal set, surrounded by people who refuse to worship his ego, Kody Brown finally met his match.
The man who once commanded 4 households now struggles to find purpose in a single one. He has described feeling spiritually empty, admitting that the ideal of plural marriage no longer holds the same meaning for him. Without his wives and children surrounding him, the faith structure he built his life upon has begun to collapse. Those close to him describe long days spent in introspection, journaling, and seeking spiritual guidance. He rarely ventures into town and has become almost reclusive, spending most of his time with Robyn and their children. Financially, the move also makes sense. The Browns' once massive family expenses were supported by TLC's production contracts and shared income, but with the family divided, the financial picture changed dramatically. The show's future remains uncertain, and rumors suggest that producers may be shifting focus to Christine's new life rather than Kody's. For a man who built his identity around leading a family and being the star of a reality empire, that loss of relevance is devastating. Robyn, who has always prioritized stability for her children, reportedly urged him to downsize and live a quieter, more sustainable life. It was, she believed, the only way to heal. Still, their decision to leave Flagstaff has left fans divided. Some see it as a necessary step toward peace, while others believe it's simply another form of running away. The Brown family's saga has always been about conflict between faith and reality, idealism and emotion. For many, Kody and Robyn's move symbolizes the final surrender, the acknowledgement that the polygamous dream cannot be sustained in the modern world. The once grand vision of family unity has been reduced to 2 people clinging to each other, trying to salvage what remains of their love. In online forums and fan discussions, reactions range from heartbreak to vindication. "It's the end of an era," one longtime viewer wrote. "I used to believe in their dream, but now it's clear that it was never built to last." Others express sympathy, recognizing the human pain behind the headlines. "People forget they're real," one fan commented. "They've been through so much, and maybe this move is the only way for them to find themselves again." There is also speculation that this move may mark the end of Sister Wives as we know it. The show's original premise revolved around plural marriage, the dynamics between wives, and the challenges of balancing love and jealousy. With only Kody and Robyn remaining, that dynamic no longer exists. Some insiders suggest that the network may pivot to a new format, focusing on the ex-wives' individual journeys and treating Kody and Robyn's story as an epilogue. If that happens, their move will stand as the symbolic closing of a chapter that began 15 years ago with a promise of eternal family unity. What makes this moment particularly poignant is the sense of irony that surrounds it. Kody spent years preaching about the strength of his family and the divine purpose behind his marriages. He believed he was building something eternal, something that could withstand jealousy, cultural judgment, and spiritual doubt. Yet in the end, it was not society that tore them apart. It was the weight of their own emotions. The same love that was meant to multiply instead divided them. The move away from Flagstaff feels like an unspoken confession, a quiet acknowledgement that the dream has died. Robyn has remained mostly silent on social media since the move, perhaps choosing to process her grief privately. Her silence speaks volumes. This is a woman who, for years, defended Kody against public criticism, who tried to bridge the gap between him and the other wives, who fought to preserve the family's image even as it was falling apart. Now, her energy seems spent. Those who know her say that she's focusing entirely on her children, trying to shield them from the turmoil that continues to swirl around their parents' legacy. As the desert wind blows across the empty property that once echoed with laughter and chaos, it's hard not to feel the finality of this moment. The Brown family's story began with a dream: to live in harmony, to love abundantly, to defy the limits of traditional relationships. But dreams, no matter how noble, can turn into burdens when they demand too much. Kody and Robyn's move is not just a relocation, it is an ending, a full-circle moment that brings the Sister Wives saga to its most human conclusion. There are no more confessions to make, no more apologies to give. What remains is the quiet realization that love, once stretched too thin, eventually snaps. And yet, there is also a small glimmer of hope buried beneath the sorrow. Perhaps this move, painful as it is, will allow Kody and Robyn to finally find peace beyond the glare of cameras and the judgment of fans. Perhaps they will learn to love each other not as symbols of a failed dream, but as two imperfect people who have endured more than most marriages could bear. The road ahead will not be easy, but for the first time in years, it is their own. As the sun sets over Arizona and the Brown legacy fades into memory, one thing becomes clear. The dream may have ended, but the story will live on. Sister Wives began as an exploration of faith and love, but it has become a story of resilience, transformation, and the inevitable cost of human desire. Kody and Robyn's heartbreaking move marks the final chapter in that saga, the end of a dream that once promised forever, and the beginning of whatever comes next.
Mary Brown, the first wife of Sister Wives patriarch Kody Brown, hosted what she thought would be an innocent paint night among friends. But the event quickly spiraled into an unexpectedly NSFW spectacle when an eggplant-themed painting session took a life of its own. Laughter erupted, cameras rolled, and before long, social media couldn't stop talking about the moment that made even Mary admit, "I don't know how this happened." What began as a quirky get-together became one of the most talked about moments in Sister Wives history, a mix of humor, shock, and unintentional chaos that perfectly captures the unpredictable energy of Mary Brown herself. The evening started innocently enough, with Mary Brown gathering a small group of her closest friends for a paint and sip night at her home. It was supposed to be a creative escape from the emotional weight of her life in the spotlight. Cameras from Sister Wives were rolling, capturing her in one of her most carefree moods yet. After years of emotional turbulence following her separation from Kody, Mary seemed ready to embrace laughter and color once more. She had wine, paint, laughter, and a spark of mischief that seemed to signal a woman ready to reclaim her joy. But what she didn't anticipate was that her choice of subject matter would turn the night into one of the most talked about moments in Brown family lore, a cheeky, eggplant-themed art session that took a hilariously suggestive turn. The eggplant night, as fans are now calling it, was meant to be symbolic. Mary wanted to focus on bold, vibrant colors and fruits that represented personal growth. She even mentioned in her confessional that eggplant symbolized resilience, rebirth, and abundance. But once the brushes hit the canvas, the room filled with laughter that quickly crossed the line from innocent to downright bawdy. As guests began to notice the shape of their art, someone cracked a joke that made Mary spit out her wine in laughter. What started as playful humor became a full-blown, laughter-fueled disaster. Paintbrushes flew, inside jokes escalated, and before anyone knew it, the night had gone completely off script.
Producers reportedly didn't know how to handle the footage. The show has had its share of drama: divorces, tears, confessions, and family breakdowns. But this was something else entirely. When the scene finally aired, TLC viewers were left stunned. Mary's cheeky expression, the guests giggling uncontrollably, and the unmistakable eggplant shapes on canvas made it clear that this wasn't your typical sister-wives moment. Fans immediately took to social media, turning the incident into meme gold. Hashtags like Eggplant Gate, Mary Gone Wild, and Paint Night Fail began trending within hours. Mary, known for her usually reserved personality, seemed both embarrassed and amused. In her Instagram Live the following day, she laughed it off, saying, "I honestly don't know how this happened. One minute we were painting fruits, the next minute, well, you all saw what happened." Her ability to own the moment endeared her to fans who have watched her struggle through heartbreak and isolation. It was as if the paint night became a metaphor for Mary's post-Kody life, messy, colorful, and entirely her own. For years, Mary has been portrayed as the most emotionally complex of Kody's wives. Her storyline has evolved from being the loyal first wife to a woman reclaiming her identity outside of the plural marriage. The eggplant paint night, though accidental in its humor, symbolized her shift toward unapologetic authenticity. She wasn't trying to please anyone anymore. She wasn't painting for Kody or the cameras. She was painting for herself. And if laughter and chaos came along for the ride, so be it. Even so, Kody Brown's reaction reportedly wasn't quite as amused. Sources close to the family revealed that he found the entire thing inappropriate and attention-seeking. For a man who has often tried to maintain a certain moral authority within his family, seeing his ex-wife become the center of a viral NSFW story couldn't have been easy. Robyn Brown, the last remaining wife, reportedly tried to diffuse the tension, suggesting that Mary was just having fun. But insiders say the incident sparked yet another round of heated behind-the-scenes conversations about image, respectability, and what's acceptable behavior for someone once associated with the Brown family name. Meanwhile, fans were having the time of their lives. Twitter exploded with commentary, TikTok creators reenacted the moment, and Instagram was filled with screenshots of Mary's stunned yet gleeful reaction. Viewers who had long seen Mary as the quiet, heartbroken one suddenly saw a woman letting loose, maybe for the first time in years.